A long time ago, a war broke the world. Everyone is screaming at the top of their lungs, fighting till the strongest remains. However, there is a plot twist to that. It seems like the main protagonist of this story would be an isekai. So when did it all start? It was a clear and sunny day in his past life. A man named Takakuro Raizo is preparing to go to work. However, as he walks out of his apartment, he knows for a fact that he is tired to even move an inch. Because of that, he ended up finding himself laying on the ground. As his chest pumps hard, he starts to pray not to die this way at all. That said, his life as Takakuro Raizo had ended abruptly. But the man who takes a second life in a strange new world is now known as Walm. He's seen holding his hands together again like it's a habit. A man named Jose then states that they need to group up together once again. They are all worried that their commander will start bragging about the results of the war again. Speaking of war results, it seems like Walm was able to take down 9 of them in one go. Jose then states to him that he should be proud of himself too, since he has acquired so many good things in one go. However, Walm states that something like this is nothing to be proud of. Jose then asks why. Walm, with the coldest voice anyone could give, states that he is only doing all of these because it is his job to do so, stating that he didn't kill them to up his numbers at all. Because for him, when the states say kill, it is his duty to kill as a loyal soldier. Walm now lives in a world where war still rages, so he always feels obligated to do what the higher-ups say, just like his old self in his past life. Hearing this somehow made Jose think of Walm as a severe guy. Now that their job at the battlefield is done, they eventually decide to leave the bloody scene and join the squad. That night, everyone was resting and having the time of their lives after another big war had ended. Walm, on the other hand, sits quietly, enjoying his food to the fullest. Then a big man enters the scene, calling Walm's name. As soon as he gets a grip on Walm's shoulders, he then states that he has heard rumors of Walm taking down 9 enemy soldiers on his own. However, the man who reeks so much of alcohol states that he still wins considering he took down 15 of them. He tries to pity Walm, saying that Walm isn't half bad either. So Walm, who knows how the man literally thinks, plays around saying that he knows that he still can't win against a man like Commander Due. The man, who is Commander Due, then states that at least Walm isn't lying after all, since he does not get the skills. Then 2 individuals enter the scene. One of them states that magic is one thing, but skills are just a cheat. Commander Due, who has no idea who the 2 individuals are, asks who the hell they are. Jose then went on to say that those 2 are the 2 surviving rookies they have. One is the coxcomb dude Barito, and the cute one is Nor. Commander Due then starts arguing with Barito, saying that his skill isn't considered a cheat since it is his own power. Barito, who will do everything to stick to his principles, states that it is still considered cheating no matter what. On the other hand, Nor then asks Due if it is true that his warhammer can defeat all kinds of armor there is. Due, who is full of himself, then states that it is all true. Walm, who is curious to know more about it, then asks if it is something that Due has wished for. Jose then answers Walm's queries, saying that there is no possible way Due didn't wish for it. After all, one of the commander's powerhouse moves is a sort of sure kill technique. Jose badly wants some sweet skills like this since he feels like that sort of skill alone can change the tide of war. Other than that, it will surely give them lots of money. Jose then asks Walm if he wants a skill for himself as well. Walm, who is forever honest, then states that as long as it is for free, he will gladly take it. In addition to that, when Jose asks him if he is interested in magic as well, Walm answers that it is still a nice thing to dream about. Hearing Walm say his dream shocked Jose very much. Jose even told their commander right away. However, their brief fun is immediately cut short when they start talking about tomorrow's plan of fighting a ton of battles once more. From tomorrow on, their opponent will be mired. Today's the day they completely split up the Liberation Trade Federation. The Hyzerk Empire has already begun to gather its army in Saria City, in the northwestern part of the former kingdom of Konoha, adjacent to Mired. However, the war against Liberation is nothing but the mere beginning. The fundamental objective is to defeat Mired. Commander Due then states that it has been fun so far, but starting tomorrow, the real battle begins. It will be unlike anything they've experienced before. It will be a big battle, so they must prepare themselves in any way possible. That said, the next day during battle, it seems like Walm is struggling to fight with his morals. However, he doesn't have any choice since he is still a mere soldier who just follows orders. When his kill count already reaches 10, Walm wakes up from daydreaming. It seems like they are just on their way to battle, and Walm's mind is already in it. That said, they have finally reached Saria City, where poverty is everywhere. When Walm saw a prostitute begging for some work to do, Walm couldn't take to see her struggling so much, so he ended up just giving her some coins so that she could buy herself some food to eat. Jose, on the other hand, tells Walm not to get so comfortable with anyone since it may cause something bad in the end. However, Walm couldn't help but have a soft heart for some beggars struggling to make ends meet. since he himself knows how bad it feels inside. When he got to this new world, he was not able to sustain himself by just farming. That's why he became a soldier. The supply funds given by the army were needed to pay for his home. Without it, his parents, siblings, and he would become beggars. As he walks down the alleyways full of people who are starving, Wom starts to remember the time when Saria was still a place full of hope and energy. 5 years ago, this was still a Konoan kingdom territory, not Hyzark territory. But Konoha had already been continuously strengthening their borders, thus interfering with Hyzark borders. Even Wom is surprised that they have somehow managed to win that battle and defend the village. This was an abundant land with lots of people, vast fields, and delicious food. But when it comes to Konoha now, it has faced its worst. Jose then asks the commander what he thinks is the reason for this downfall. Commander Due then answers that the mired Grand Duke was a former Konoan nobleman. That guy took advantage of the Hyzark War by abandoning Konoha and defecting to the neighboring Farius kingdom. The dispatch army from Farius and Myard's own army trampled over. One by one, Konoan territories were invaded and vandalized, and turned into a scorched earth. That resulted in Konoha being ruined. The mired Grand Duke seized the Konoha territory and became a monarch, and Myard became an independent country. It can be said that this land became like this because it was sold to the mired Grand Duke. The Hyzark also lacked troops and postponed the invasion until now. That's why the grudge that citizens have towards Myard and Farius is more profound than that with Hyzark. This still continued even when Hyzark participated in the Myard invasion war. Hearing all this made Wom think that this person would be the enemy he ought to defeat next time, no matter what. After walking for minutes, they finally reached an inn where they would stay for the time being. While they were drinking, the three started to talk about the plan. Following the Liberatoan border, they wished that victory would be theirs. However, it seems like Wom had so much to drink that he ended up vomiting all of it in one go. While his world is literally spinning around, Wom can't uphold the fact that he is calling himself a soldier. Even deep inside, he refers to himself as a murderer. The next day, the big battle begins. Commander Due is doing his best to give his men the best words of encouragement anyone could give. On the other hand, in the enemy's land, Commander Gerard Berger is also speaking with his fellow soldiers. He states that for those who have gathered, they are the symbol of the bravery of their empire. With this bravery, Commander Gerard hopes they will already put an end to this war. He added that his men shouldn't be afraid to trample over their enemies, that they have to show them that they are not afraid of winning the war. On the other hand, Wom is already readying himself for yet another killing spree. After all, it is a kill or be killed situation. However, Wom couldn't deny the fact that he is worried about what's going to happen next. Jose, who has taken notice of Wom's paleness, asks if there is something wrong. Wom then states that it is all just a hangover and nothing to worry about. However, Jose knows that there is something behind Wom's murky eyes. So Jose tells him that if it is about something that happened, he must not be afraid to tell him about anything, since he will gladly listen to everything that Wom says. However, it seems like Wom has decided not to share any of his sentiments. That said, let's now jump right into the war plan. The Empire's army that departed from Saria City was divided into 3 large troops. All 3 routes that led to the Myard territory were targeted for capture. Notably, a massive fort that blocked the main road is being guarded by 3,000 soldiers. That capture was predicted to be particularly difficult. However, they must try their best to succeed no matter what. Due's squad has now arrived at Saria's paramount fort. They will now prepare for battle. However, Wom is worried that newcomers Nor and Barito will die during this battle, so he will try his best to protect the two as much as possible. When the horn sounds start to echo, Due's squad rushes for the castle. Along the way, they have been Some of their troops managed to escape from the siege and plotted some guerrilla warfare on the road passing through the surrounding forest. The Hyzark army that was heading toward the Myard was stopped in its tracks. A significant loss of supplies and soldiers was suffered as a result. That said, seeing a man with a crushed face out of nowhere is just absurd as it may go. Jose, Walm, and the others start talking more about it. Walm states that he doesn't think it was done with a halberd since the crushed area was too big for it to be that. It seems like the weapon that was used as a shield, Commander Dewey states. Jose then asks him if the commander thought that the culprit might be someone who may have a skill for themselves. Dewey then states that there are many users with the power skill, so it has to be the iron wall skill. With it, even a wooden shield's effectiveness becomes similar to an iron one's. It is known that if you hit someone with it, you'll end up with a dead body like this one. At least 2 people have a sort of ability, 1 magic user and 1 skill user. Isekai'd will definitely use these kinds of people in this guerrilla warfare, which Walm thinks isn't suitable for their part. Jose then states that an entire company of men went to look for the enemies but to no avail. Instead, Isekai'd's army ended up losing 30 of their members. The enemy should have definitely been defeated by now, but they are pretty resilient. While they are walking through the forest, Nora is able to spot something she was not expecting at all. A person is hanging up a tree, cold and dead. They then state that these are the people of the forest who have sold the information of the Isekai'd army to the Isekai'd troops. Walm then told her that there was a time when he wasn't used to this type of view. Someone had told him that it was because of these people that dozens of innocent people were killed, so there's no need to feel guilty about everything that is happening to the forest people. Then, after a while, a warning is sent, stating that the troops should be aware that the Isekai'd troops are on their way to attack. Walm then moves ahead of everybody, killing off as many enemies as he can. When he already got a clear picture of the enemies, it turns out that they are the leading adventurers. Nor, who doesn't have any idea what a leading adventurer means, asks. Jose then explains to her that these are the people who subjugate demons and secure dungeons. No wonder the Isekai'd troops are good at guerrilla warfare, since they had the adventurers as one of their allies. Walm then thought that if it was all the adventurers doing, then all that remained were the elite knights. On the other hand, Commander Dewey, who also fights with enemies, is furious at the fact that the guild is interfering with the war. However, the guild leader states that they are just free-willed employed soldiers. Meanwhile, back to Walm, he's in a deep shock as he sees that one of his enemies is just a mere kid. But despite that, for him, all magic users are just a nuisance, so this will only lead to him killing the kid no matter what. With his evil, murky eyes, Walm mercilessly kills everyone that comes his way. He then tells anyone who begs him to spare their life to give up since no one will help them in the end. The kid then shouts out to ask how Walm can kill someone so quickly. Walm then looks at her with the coldest eyes there are, stating that on a battlefield, it is necessary to do such a thing. After all, Walm is sure that the girl herself has killed her own share of people, and since this is a rather pointless conversation, Walm would rather finish it in one go. However, it seems like the girl had some excellent training and is able to dodge its attack. But there is one thing that Walm is able to realize, and it's that this girl is not used to killing people at all. However, this would not stop Walm from killing her no matter what. As Walm rushes towards her, as his weapon almost reaches her, a man with long hair stops him on time. It turns out that the girl is actually the adventurer's leader, so no matter what happens, she should be defended at all costs. However, the man who tried to help ended up meeting his death in the end. On the other hand, as Walm tries to kill the girl, a hidden magic starts to linger in the surroundings. It's so powerful that it was not just Walm who felt it. It turns out that it is all the girl's doing. When Walm is readying himself to fight once and for all, the girl somehow finds an escape route which ultimately leads to her freedom from death. The Isekai'd troops then thought that considerable skill must have taken a toll on her body to pull off, and there is no doubt about it. Jose then asks Dewey if they should pursue her. Dewey then states that there is no need since the main forces of the remnants of the Isekai'd army have already been dealt with, so there is no point in doing more work than necessary. From here on, the troop will continue towards Isekai'd's capital. On the other hand, while everyone is having a conversation about the next plan, Walm is left alone with his thoughts once more. Inside his head, those adventurers were quite skilled. If they were just used to people dying, the ones to die could have been them. Walm then thought that he himself didn't want to kill because he wanted to. It seems like there is a much deeper reason behind it than anyone could have thought. On the other hand, the girl is still seen crying her eyes out, stating her confusion at Walm's problems. Then there is an entity seen saying the words, "Submit already." It will be just a matter of time before we know what this entity is. The next day, it is yet another normal one for Walm and the Isekai'd troop. One of Walm's comrades tells him to hold his hand. Walm is a bit confused at first as he never really gets the reason why. But his comrades then explain that since Walm always wanted to learn about magic, he might as well teach him while they still have some free time to spare. Walm, who is very much excited, smiles immediately after hearing his comrade's offer. As they hold hands, the two then start off with their tutoring session. On the other hand, the others look so confused as they question what the two are doing. Jose then explains that Willet, their comrade's name, is transferring magical energy to Walm so he could teach him how to use it. This made their comrades wonder if this thing would actually make Walm use magic, even for a short while. Jose then continues explaining, stating that after they are done, everyone would find out if Walm has an aptitude for it or not. He might be able to use fireballs and water spears, just like Willet. As they intensely hold hands, Walm looks so exhausted to the next level. However, Willet then tells him to concentrate no matter what. Walm then starts to feel coldness rushing throughout his body. Willet then states that it is alright since this is the prerequisite for the use of elemental magic. As long as Walm continues to concentrate, he will surely get there in no time. As Willet lets go of Walm's left hand, he tells him to keep his focus on his palms and think of a river or an ocean. As long as Walm visualizes any form of water, it should already be good. Walm then did as Willet says while thinking of water, and just like that, he's able to make water on his own palms. As he looks at it, Walm looks so happy and proud of himself. However, it seems like Willet is not at all impressed with what Walm has been able to do. According to Willet, although it is a usable amount of water, it doesn't really mean it is suitable. That's why Willet thought that Walm should undergo the same hardship as he did and go experience the human well. Hearing this made Walm sweat as hell, so Willet tells him not to as much as possible, and that he should just save his magic as much as he can. Compared to the explosive magic Walm uses for his skill, water-based magic requires less mana. This made Walm confused as he didn't know what Willet meant. He then asks if he has been using magic the whole time. Willet then explains that both body reinforcement magic and skills require magical power. Roughly speaking, when Walm uses magical power for elemental magic like Fireball and Water Spear, it is classified as magic. And when he uses techniques like Power Attack and Iron Wall, he uses magic power to strengthen his body or weapon. These are called skills. Willet is a bit surprised that Walm is unaware of this fact. Walm then explains that he was raised on a farm under military rule, so he was illiterate. With that said, Willet will now test if Walm has an aptitude for fire elemental magic. Walm then did the same thing he did earlier, but this time with fire in his mind. Willet is able to look away for 1 second, and when he looks back at Walm, he is in deep shock when he sees that Walm has a big flame. Everyone immediately went into panic as it caused a big fire. Thankfully, Willet is able to stop Walm from causing an even bigger fire. But instead of getting furious at what Walm did, it seems like Willet is even happier about what has happened, since he can now finally say that Walm definitely has an aptitude for fire magic. So instead of stopping, they will now continue with the next step. Meanwhile, a man then relays a message to Commander Dewey, and it seems like it is a message from the Allied troops. Inside the message, there is an order from Captain Ligurian. However, after Dewey reads the letter, all that he can say is that the Allied troops must be crazy for thinking of such a strategy. The messenger then states that it is the plan that was given to him, and that is why the Dewey squad has been ordered to hastily merge with the main battalion, since the war will take place in the plains of Reref. With this, the Hyzerk will certainly face defeat, since both the Mired and Farius strongholds are on these hills. Furthermore, by observing the Hyzerk army position, it is apparent that the majority of their army will head toward the army of Mired first, with a small number of people holding the Hyzerk army down. So it is all predicted. The downfall of the Hyzerk army is predicted. Meanwhile, Lord Farius Winston of the Farius army is also furious at the fact that the Hyzerk army is crazy in wanting to defeat them that badly, and the fact that their Hyzerk army wants to restrain the 6,000 men army is even more absurd. That's why Lord Farius is hoping to create a few skeletons out of those Hyzerk troops. As Lord Farius checks on his troops, it seems like everyone is ready, and knowing that the Mired will be attacked by Jeff's cavalry battalion makes him think that the Hyzerk army is quite sharp, and the advancement will be carried by the strongest troops they have. But in the end, they are still not the enemy. Lord Farius is fighting not for anyone but their country alone, so he will make sure both the Mired and the Hyzerk die on the battlefield today, and everything should belong to Farius alone. Now that the Hyzerk troops are already moving, this only marks the beginning of everything. With a total number of the Mired army of 25,000 soldiers and the Hyzerk army with around 15,000 men, the war will now begin. Going back to the Hyzerk troops, Jose asks Walm why he thinks the Mired army looks so fierce on the battlefield right now. Walm then answers that he thinks it is because they are in Farius' homeland. Commander Dewey then realizes that the reason they have been called to battle is for them to be gotten rid of. However, Nor doesn't get it since the enemy is still on standby even though the battle has already started. This made Dewey furious. Although it took the enemy a lot of time to prepare this deployment plan, he will just explain it to them as briefly as possible. First, the Hyzerk army will aim for the Mired stronghold. While that goes on, the final deciding factor will also occur. The Ligurian battalion, which includes the Dewey squad, will converge and blitz with Jeff's cavalry battalion. This plan somehow made Walm confused, because they know for a fact that the infantry and the cavalry will be running together, which is too reckless no matter how much they look at it. So the only question that the Dewey squad is asking is why is it them? The representative then states that it seems to be because of the Ligurian battalion has a lot of experience. However, Commander Dewey is not taking their reasons at all, since it literally means that they, as humans, will have to run with horses. Even if their hearts are about to burst and their lungs are about to explode, no one can stop because they will end up getting crushed by the following running soldiers. If one stops, they will die. And if they want to live, they must kill the enemies in front while running. And the fact that the squad is put on the front lines is even more absurd. Commander Dewey then blames Walm for it, since it is because he has gone rampaging with his power move in the last battle. So the allied troops thought that they were so strong. And since their troop has not only one, but 2 power move users. On top of that, they also have Willet's magic as well, so it can't be helped that the Liguarian battalion commander expected a lot from them. While they were taking their time to talk about the unexpected turns, the battle continued to happen in the background. They were then put on halt when Commander Dewey realized that the attack order still hadn't arrived yet. He starts to worry that something bad might have happened to the vanguard, which means that the plan might not be going well at all. But Dewey still maintains optimism, telling himself that Commander Berger would not misread the situation. However, no matter what happens, the main army of the Farius territory has finally arrived. The Heiserk army doesn't know what to do next. They start to get hysterical on what's the plan since there are no attack orders given. To make it even worse, the reserve army of the Myard is also heading their way, so if they don't do anything about it, they will definitely be decimated. That said, the Heiserk army has no other choice but to take everything into their own hands. Some of the soldiers started attacking the Myard army since it was the enemy they were first ought to fight with, resulting for others to join as well. In the end, the Heiserk army is literally running towards their death, and the commander has no control over it. To fight alongside this cavalry is so tough, and now that they are almost in contact with the enemy, it's even worse. The commander along with Walm and the others have also made their way to fight with the others as well. Commander Dewey then states that it seems like they have already baited them all out. Walm has no idea what the commander is talking about, so he asks more about it. Dewey then states that it is all a hunch for him, but it seems like their plan of pretending that the Heiserk army wasn't functioning well and baiting the enemy to come is going pretty well. It turns out that the plan, which was told to everyone, was actually a bluff, and they deceived the enemy by using their allies. This resulted in most of the enemy forces getting stuck with the Heiserk's army, leaving the Farius army headquarters with fewer men. Now the mission of the army is to take down the Farius headquarters as soon as possible. This plan involves their main army, who acted as decoys, who now have not much time. To win, they have no choice but to crush the enemy headquarters before they do. That said, as much as possible, they would utilize much of their power and resources. Willet and Walm attack in front as they are the only 2 who can use elemental magic. With Willet's water magic and Walm's fire, the enemy's first line of defense got easily defeated in no time. Now that a gap in the enemy line has been opened, this is an excellent advantage for the Heiserk army. One by one, the Heiserk army kills every enemy in every direction. Commander Dewey then tells his men to remove all of the anti-cavalry fences as much as possible and make a path for the cavalry. If one fails, there is no tomorrow. As the horses rush into the battlefield, everyone is fierce and ready to risk their life for the sake of winning. On the other hand, the main troops of the enemy are also on their way to counterattack. However, the Heiserk army would not make this a reason for them to fall, so with much dedication, they focus on their goal. On the other hand, Walm yet again has found himself picking a fight with another strong man. As he observes the army, Walm is able to notice that the man clearly has a different set of armor and weapons compared to the soldiers he has fought till now, which means the enemy he is up against now is a royal guard. So if it is the case, then he must be from the target Farius stronghold. That means their general is really close by. That said, Walm then shouts at the guard, saying he should move if he doesn't want to die in foreign lands. However, instead of moving away, the guard rushes in to attack Walm with a strong swing of his sword. Walm didn't anticipate that the attack would be that strong, so he didn't think much about it. But as he blocks the sword, he can say that there is much power behind it. Meanwhile, Commander Dewey and the others are still struggling to fight the enemies they have. It seems like there is no end to them at all. Jose is also able to notice that there is a strange group in the back who are trying to run away without stopping their invasion. Commander Dewey then states that that is the enemy's general, and since there is no one free to catch it, at this rate, their general is going to escape in no time. Even Commander Dewey starts to wonder if these soldiers are just here to give time to the weakling general. Going back to Walm, it seems like he is also struggling to fight the Royal Guard, even with his power move. When things aren't going on his terms at all, Walm will now resort to the best thing he thinks would make him win, and that is to use his fire powers. This time around, he swears to burn the enemy down no matter what. He must use magic, but just a fireball would be no good. These fully armored Royal Guards don't mind dying, so they are a big hindrance. Inside his head, as long as these guys are here, the Heiserk army can't reach their goals. If they lose the enemy's general, it would already be the end of the mission. In other words, Walm has no choice but to ablaze his surroundings while maintaining the intensity of his fire. Walm is now literally on fire, and Jose tells everyone to stay away from him as much as possible if they don't want to be torched alive. Walm is eager to kill the Royal Guard no matter what, so with his blue flame, he ended up melting the man away. On the other hand, the news about the happenings has already reached the enemy's base. One man informs Lord Farius that it's already dangerous to stay in the area, and that they don't have a choice but to join up with the battalion, since if the general dies in the battle, it will be the downfall of the entire army. Lord Farius then got furious at what his men had stated, since this only means that he needs to run away and give up on the stronghold. Then another man comes rushing inside his tent, informing him that their anti-cavalry fence has been broken already. They don't have any choice but to move as fast as they can if they still want to stay alive. Then a big explosion literally awoke the hell out of the Lord. In the midst of this event, he is able to remember a time when someone told him that on the battlefield, if ever he sees a blue fire, that only means the bonfire of the netherworld, which simply means that there is an invited death waiting for him. This fire death's name is Ignis Fatuus. It was as if someone had opened the gates to hell. That said, the commanding general Lord Farius already has an idea of what's going to happen to him next. Now that Walm is already in front of him, despair will continue to spread with the color blue. Now that Walm has successfully cornered the commanding general Farius, it will only be a matter of time before things would fall into order. However, instead of getting all scared, knowing that he is already one step away from death, it seems like the commanding general is still full of himself, stating that Walm is just a mere foot soldier who thinks highly of himself. The commanding general then tells Walm with a very confident voice, stating that he is the commander of the Isekai'd and Farius expedition forces. So if anyone should be scared, that should be Walm, who he refers to as no one at all. On the other hand, Walm starts to contemplate if the commanding general in front of him is the real deal or if it is just a double. However, as he looks closer, he eventually confirms that it is the actual general. Walm then states that the general should just give up. Walm knows that there is no point in killing the general without reason, considering having someone of royalty as a prisoner of war is very beneficial. Walm thought that he would just spare the commanding general, since the Isekai'd army would definitely want that. So after hearing the general say that there is no reason for him to surrender, Walm couldn't take it anymore and starts to attack the general while still seeing to it that he is not killing him in any way possible. He tries to move as swiftly as he can, since if it was a bit slower, it would have been a fatal wound. On the other hand, the commanding general is trying to fight with all his might. However, he somehow can't find an opening for himself. Although Walm tries not to kill the man no matter what, it seems like it is already fate that he will end up dying. As the fight finally ended, Jose asked Walm if he was alright. All he can say is that he is terribly tired and can't seem to express it very well. But Jose assures him that this feeling of tiredness is alright considering that it is proof of life. After all, it was a long fight, so feeling this much exhaustion after a back-to-back fight with strong guards and a commander will be exhausting. When Walm finally got his senses back together, he then went on to ask if the others were fine, just to check on everyone. Noor then answers him with a sad look on her face, saying that everyone is full of life, as if she is trying to tease the truth that almost everyone has died on the battlefield. The squad leader then states that no one is allowed to sleep yet, not on his watch at all, so everyone must drink as much water as they can to keep themselves as hydrated as possible. On the other hand, as Walm looks at their commander, he can only say that even with all those cuts on his body, it seems like Commander Dewey still wants to fight no matter what. A slight glimpse of hope is still seen in his eyes. With a victory over Farius and Isekai'd, this war will soon end. But will it? On the other hand, at the Isekai'd territory, the base has already received the report regarding Commanding General Farius' sudden defeat in battle. Now the question is, what will they do now? The commanding chief of the Isekai'd group seems a bit nervous about what is going to happen next. Inside his head, for what did he lick the shoes of the Farius Empire for 5 years? For what did he sell his motherland? He even sold his daughter to avoid involving himself in war. However, he still ended up dealing with it in the end, now with the death of Commander Farius. He even thought of accepting defeat once and for all. However, it seems like he will have a hard time doing so, considering his people would even want to go after him now, especially now that he has already made his crimes clear to everyone. He's now subjected to getting killed by his own people. After they defeated the allied forces of Farius and Isekai'd, the Isekai'd army advanced to Edinburgh, the capital of Isekai'd, by foot. Walm and his group were ordered to maintain peace and order in the city, but it seems like Walm will not do such a thing. Edinburgh, formerly part of Isekai'd city, has now been taken over by the Isekai'd army. The whole place is now out of order and will definitely meet its downfall sooner or later. The Isekai'd army is now inside a big room with a big table, sitting and waiting for the meeting to start. Some of the army members start to question what their commander Dewey is doing to get them all invited to such an extensive residence. The soldiers don't have any idea at all, and no matter how they look at it, this isn't technically a jail, so they don't think they have ulterior motives other than talking. Little did these soldiers know that Commander Dewey was actually hearing everything they were talking about. Dewey then asks them if they think he made a mistake. The soldiers immediately state that they don't. but eventually state probably a little. This made the commander wonder if the higher-ups would actually be going to reward them for their work. The cavalry battalion commander Jeff also said something similar. Maybe that's the case. When the drinks were already served, Jose asked Due if he knew how to drink it, since this is technically their first time in such a fine dining setup. All that Due knows is that when drinking this kind of refreshment, it's all about the sound, since these royalties are actually drinking their tea very quietly. As the soldiers sip on the tea, the smile on their faces couldn't be hidden at all. It seems like everyone loved the taste of hot tea, lingering in their mouth sensually. Even Wom couldn't believe that he would come across such a fine product as tea, although he doesn't know much about the manners of the world he is living in right now. He does, however, remember the manners of the fibrous world he lived in. Sipping on this fresh tea made him remember some things in his past life that are worth remembering. While Wom is enjoying every drop of his tea, his comrades start looking at him disgustingly as they think his reaction is a bit absurd for a son of a farmer. While they are having the time of their lives, having fun and laughing, while also bickering, a man enters the room and makes them all quiet. As the man steps inside, the squad immediately stands, showing their utmost respect. The old man then tells them to take their seats, since they can't possibly have a conversation while standing up. This old man is a childlike old man, a hero of war. He's none other than Commander Belga, the brain of war. As he sits down, he immediately sips on his tea like no other. When he has already got a grip on the situation, he immediately states how surprised he is hearing about the report. That it wasn't Jeff's cavalry that killed Farius' commander, but rather Due's infantry. Even Belga himself has been outdone, especially by all of them. He thought he would give the guys that reward directly, so he decided to call them personally. Commander Due, who is a bit shy, states that they are unworthy of the hero's praises, but we all know that he loved hearing it. Belga somehow grew fond of Due after he heard how fierce Due was on the battlefield. Commander Belga even termed Due a treasure of the country, since it is pretty rare to find commanders like him. Hearing this made Due so happy. Finally, after all those struggles, he's able to hear some good words from someone important to him. And of course, the commander couldn't possibly forget about Wom. With an eerie look in his eyes, Commander Belga calls for Wom's name. Wom, on the other hand, is a bit startled that the commander knows him. The commander then stated in detail that 6 months after joining the battalion, Wom trained in battles near the border. Through his training, he was able to acquire much skill and power that he uses now in his battles. He is a very strong weapon for the squad leader, since other than the fact that he has learned magic, he is also quite the adamant actual fighter. On top of that, he also now has the skill of Ignis Fatuus, which is considered to be one of the deadliest skills there is. So it is natural for Commander Belga to feel excited and amazed at how skillful and powerful Wom truly is. Wom couldn't say anything other than thank you. The commander then continues with his speech, saying that when he was young, he was able to see Ignis Fatuus once, but thank God, Wom is a soldier of Hyzerk. One would like to avoid getting burned and killed by the blue fire. Everyone has heard about the fairy tale of the fire, which sends anyone to the netherworld. Throughout history, the ones that had this ability were either famous heroes or some outstanding adventurers. So the commander wonders if Wom is one of them. So he calls for Lynette to bring something in. A weird looking mask is then presented to Wom. Just looking at it made Wom extremely agitated. The commander then explains that this mask is worn initially by a party of other worlders. They went on a rampage against the 3 major nations. As a result, there are many mysteries surrounding that mask. But the only thing known about this mask is that the owner could also use Ignis Fatuus like Wom. So the commander asks Wom to wear the mask to see if it fits. And surprisingly, it fit perfectly. Other than that, it did suit him very much. However, inside Wom's mind, confusion starts to rush in. He starts to question why it feels like deja vu, a feeling he can feel in his original world. While he is feeling all these emotions, the commander keeps on telling him that the enemies will definitely fear him with that mask on. So he says that if Wom likes it, then he can keep it. With the unhappiest face anyone could imagine, Wom states that he likes the mask very much so. However, it seems like the commander has something up his sleeves. It turns out that the mask is actually cursed. Wom tries to ask the commander about it. The commander keeps laughing his lungs out as if there is no tomorrow. All that the commander can say is that it looks like the mask has taken a liking to Wom. The mask sometimes harmonizes with his emotions and trembles. It hasn't caused any harm yet, so the commander states that no one should worry much about it. There are rare occasions of weapons having their own skill. This thing is very picky, which is quite problematic. It's good that it has finally found a suitable owner, so Wom should cherish it with all his heart. That said, as soon as that dreadful meeting is finally ended, everyone seems to look so tired all of a sudden. Although they are all thankful that they have finally got the reward they have wanted, it seems like Wom has got something he has never expected to have at all. Although he knows that the gift was unnecessary and a bit over the top, Wom will try to cherish it no matter what, considering it is something that the commander has given to him. Even if the mask literally has its own will and shakes immensely, It's nothing new in the world that Walm is in right now, so he finds it not so hard to take it wholeheartedly. As they walk past the main road, the group has come across a pile of dead bodies of mired soldiers. It seems like these men rushed to this place after they lost their lord. It just shows that even if they have wealth and power, it only takes a moment for it all to crumble. It seems as though insurgents killed the mired kinship before the Hyzerk army arrived, but it also seems that apart from soldiers, commoners also participated in the insurgents. The death toll is still rising greatly. That's why Walm and his group were ordered to maintain public order. Part of the job is to find the mired soldiers hiding in the city and the people disregarding martial law and looting. Other than that, Walm's group will also dispose of the said prisoners and facilitate a smooth operation. One by one, Walm and the others start to find individual after individual. Some try to beg for the Hyzerk troops to spare their lives, while some reasons that they are not soldiers. Even Walm starts to ask if that person is really a soldier. So to stop the havoc, he tells his men to stop hurting anyone and just do the best they can to maintain order. Some of the Hyzerk troops start to hear screaming and shouting from all over the place, as if there is a battle happening somewhere. However, as sad as it may actually be, it is the sound of people killing each other. Meanwhile, Walm is roaming around the city trying to check everything. Then he came across a place where it seemed like something happened just recently. As he checks on what's going on, he felt furious when he heard that some guys broke into a house and raped a woman. They beat the woman's husband to do their evil scheme. Although the culprit is rampaging, he is finally caught after a while. So Walm asks what would happen to these people. Normally they get decapitated, but since the Hyzerk won the war, they would probably only be beaten with a whip. However, it seems like Walm thinks whipping would not be enough at all. Then Commander Dewey enters the scene, saying that getting whipped is more than enough already. Live soldiers scream on the first lash. On the second and the third, they start crying. Their skin gets peeled off, their flesh gets shaved off. Even if they piss themselves or lose consciousness, they wake up on the next slash. So there is no way a man like the culprit can bear such a thing. Hearing all of this from the commander, the other soldiers have already used it as a threat to everybody, that if they want to get their lashes reduced, they should quietly get up and turn themselves in. On the other hand, it seems like the commander is quite aware of the fact that Walm really does care about these things, and he's just afraid to tell anyone about it. That night, Walm finds himself chilling beneath the night sky. Then there is a small ruckus somewhere in the dark that causes him to be alert as he stands up and asks who's there. He states that he is only going to ask one more time, and if no one replies back, he will not stop himself from doing the worst. A man then came out of the dark, saying his apologies. As soon as he realized that these people were not soldiers, he immediately stated that it is prohibited to be outside at night. The old man and the girl then state that they are aware of the rules. So Walm asks why are they outside then? The old man then states that the city is filled with thieves and roof yards, so they can't live there anymore. They wish to seek refuge with their relatives abroad. Walm then asks if this old man is a military person of some sort. The old man then states that no, he is not. Although he was involved in a war more than 10 years ago, but Walm can guarantee that he is a retiree now. Even then, Walm still thinks that the old man's physical condition is still nice. It's natural for someone his age already to have a bent back, but it seems like he doesn't have one. On top of that, the hands of the young lady with him are too pretty, which wouldn't be the case if she was working. So Walm asks if she is sheltered inside her home or something. The old man then reasons that good health is their only redeeming feature. Above all, his granddaughter lost her parents when she was just a kid, so he didn't want her to suffer, so he raised her up really carefully. But it seems like Walm is not buying any of the old man's story, so he tries to chat and scare the two by acting as if he was going to attack them. When he sees that the two are so scared for their lives, he starts laughing his eyes out. After he got the reaction that he wanted, he eventually let the two go. It was such a very rough day for Walm, so he thinks he let the two off to somehow lessen his guilt, which eventually made him feel like a hypocrite. After a while, he started to realize that those two just now sympathize with him despite the fact that he is an invader. He starts to think that he probably killed their family and friends, and he can't make up for what he did by merely giving the girl something to eat. Meanwhile, it seems like the girl earlier was actually royalty, and she finds Walm to be a hypocrite for giving her something that she knows came from bad doings. Although her father and mother have died, the girl, whose name is Rita, still has a lot of obligation to help protect her people. That's why she and the old man, who turns out to be her guard, will now head towards Celta, and there they will plan everything they need to do. Then, 2 months later, something more is about to happen, for sure. 2 months after the siege of Meyerd's capital, Edinburgh, the Hyzerk army has now been fighting with other nations one after another. The Hyzerk army was heading straight for Farius. Because Farius had assisted the Meyerd army in the recent battle, their border strength was severely weakened, and Hyzerk wasn't so careless as to overlook such weakness. First, they sent out 2 battalions to make the towns and villages on the border surrender. After that, several battalions join up, and the Hyzerk forces split up into 2 groups. The first group consisted of 4 battalions, who were to invade the inland districts. The second group had 2 battalions circling the Farius army in order to prevent the main body from getting flanked. Wom, who is affiliated with the Laguarian battalion, is part of the second group. They were planning to besiege the Refin mines surrounding the border. During their operation, Commander Dewey keeps on laughing all the time, as if this is just a fun time for him. They had no corners and 3,000 enemy soldiers in their forts, so these forts ended up becoming multiple lines of defense for them. To make matters worse, they have the high ground as well. It will take a lot of strength and effort to take one fort down. Maybe, however, it's not worth it. That's why the Hyzarch team is planning to repeatedly launch fire attacks on the soldiers after making them retreat into their forts. First, Commander Dewey states that they should break the enemy spirits, then attack and wipe them all out. However, hearing their commander talk like this made the Hyzarch group laugh, and now that the Farius soldier is shouting from behind, it seems like Commander Dewey has no choice but to give them an encore. Thinking about what the commander stated earlier, it seems like the Hyzarch army is just waiting till the enemy starves out. Seeing how everyone seems so chill about it, there's only one thing that Wom could say about this battle. Compared to the battles they had before, this one seems kinda fun. However, 2 weeks later, it seems like the Farius soldiers are tougher than anyone thinks. So while everyone is still waiting for the battle to start, Commander Dewey tells Wom to do some training while he has spare time. Since if he can't control his magic correctly, there is a risk of harming his allies. Willett then explains to Wom that his Ignis Fatuus isn't normal at all. In the worst case scenario, it can incinerate an entire platoon, so this abandoned tunnel would be perfect for training. That said, it is now time to practice. Wom then concentrates and lets all of his power out as much as he can, and just like that, he's able to let it go in one go. On the other hand, the other members are also training as well. Both Bardo and Nor are training with Commander Dewey himself, and it seems like they are not having the best time of their lives. A few days later, Wom can finally control his magic to a certain extent, but there's an even bigger problem now, and that is, he can only use Ignis Fatuus for only 30 seconds. If he uses it for more than 40 seconds, he'll run out of mana, and when that happens, he can't use his power move or fireball. Not only that, but his physical abilities also hit rock bottom. He could even die in the process. That said, for now, Wom needs to rest above all. Jose then enters the scene, checking up on Wom, but it seems like Jose is just worried that their food will not be ready, considering the army now has been using Wom's Ignis Fatuus to heat up the food. Although he has never agreed to do any of it, he is satisfied with what he is able to do. He could never imagine that the company commander himself would show up and let him use his skill in some helpful way. On the other hand, the company commander said that making the enemy lose their fighting spirit with the smell of good food is also part of the plan. That's why, as much as possible, the Hyzarch army will make good food for the rest of the battle. However, it seems like Wom is not okay with the thought of using food at all. Considering everyone just wants to eat their heart's content, Jose then agrees with him. However, if possible, they would like to avoid eating bland food even on a battlefield. It seems like Wom is not admitting that Jose's cooking is quite tasty, so he keeps on saying that he is just munching on the food because he has used up all his mana, so he needs some calories to bring back his energy. However, it seems like Jose is not even taking it. Jose then states out of nowhere that this lifestyle of theirs will soon end, since it seems as if the number of fleeing soldiers has been increasing recently. It seems like they can't tolerate being confined to their walls any longer, so a lot of them are just surrendering. But to tease Wom, Jose then states that the smell of his cooking must be contributing to it as much as well. Jose then laughs at the thought of imagining themselves being various soldiers confined within the walls, with their stronghold completely surrounded. Regardless of day and night, there are sounds of battle. Even though they are fighting, they need to ration the little reserves they have day by day, while the enemy outside is feasting on such delicacies. This might be the worst feeling there is. A day or two would make one nauseous and irritated, but if that continued for a week, it would definitely break their spirit. That said, 3 days later, it is now time to annihilate the enemy, starting off with Wom's blue flame as the signal for the start of another war. Before the attack, the whole Hyzarch army is seen having a meeting. The mine's geographical location seems a bit tough to play with. Besides that, it's a fort after all. Since it's also very narrow, deployment of soldiers is going to be tough. That means they can't overwhelm the enemy with their numbers alone. And that's where Wom comes into play. He is going to do a night raid with a small number of people. His assignment is to use his Ignis Fatuus and cause total ruckus within the castle walls. Hearing this somehow made Wom nervous, but he didn't really have a choice since this was an order from the boss. Wom is also instructed to take a wind element user with him to execute the plan successfully. On the other hand, while Wom and some soldiers create chaos inside the castle walls, the others will use this chaos to their advantage and have the 2nd Battalion take down the fort in one go. Although Wom doesn't like the idea of the plan at all because it seems like the leaders see him as a pyromaniac, he doesn't have any choice but to agree with the said plan. That said, the plan is simplicity itself. As long as Wom creates panic inside, everything would eventually go smoothly. With that said, while the night is still young, Walm together with some soldiers inspects the area. It seems like they are going to target the defensive tower, which holds most of the enemy's soldiers. Walm's job is to simply infiltrate the area and create an opening so that their allies can storm the place. With that said, Walm then wears his cursed mask and eventually goes on to do the job. As they make their way inside the castle, everyone seems a bit worried about what is going to happen next. Even Walm is relatively unsure of what would happen. Willett then tells Walm that since he has a high aptitude for fire and wind elements, he should train other magicians alongside Ignis Fatuus. Walm then asks how he will be supposed to practice wind elements together with his current magic. Firstly, he must practice jumping really high. And during the night raid, Walm did as Willett said and practiced his wind magic. As he finally reaches the defensive tower, he eventually slices off everyone's head one after another. Using his Ignis Fatuus, he is able to kill as many guarding soldiers as he can. When the time came, the other soldiers were able to take notice of the attacks. The whole tower now is on high alert. The enemy soldiers then wonder what is that blue flame eating up the whole defense tower. They also couldn't believe their eyes as the whole defense tower started to get burnt, even though it was literally made of stone. When they finally realized that they had been attacked by the Isekai'd army, they started to gather as many soldiers as possible to defend their walls. On the other hand, Walm's companions are assuring him that they have got him covered, so he doesn't need to worry much about it. As enemies are now coming from below, they have to hurry, or they'll need to call reinforcements from the other tower. Seizing the tower was a tough part period now. They just needed to hold it till their main forces arrived. They just need to assure to set ablaze the passage leading there so that no one should be able to cross it. Walm, who obeys orders, does as their leader has ordered him to do. As he rushes inside one of the enemy's quarters, his whole body freezes when he sees a dying man crying in agony. At that point, Walm must slowly realize that the morals and consciousness attached to his previous life have been wrecked. He has lost his control in Edinburgh, so he didn't notice the amount of suffering Ignis Fatuus caused before killing someone. He is now a mere soldier who is also a murderer. He starts to contemplate, what if this wasn't his second life? What if he was initially born in this violent world? Will he not suffer as he does right now? He tells himself not to think about it since a soldier has no right to veto. As Walm's Ignis Fatuus continues to digest every corner of the tower, many enemy soldiers start to die one after another. On the other hand, it seems like Walm is also almost out of magic, but no one's coming now. However, it seems like the enemy soldiers are more fearless than expected. It seems like there are still some people who are not scared of Walm at all. Walm is a bit shocked when a few men start to ask him if he was the one that caused the fire. The man then thanks Walm for the chants that the Isekai'd army says day after day and night after night. Aside from that, the man also wanted to thank Walm for letting them smell the food that he referred to as dog food that they cook every day. However, it seems like instead of getting scared that he is now cornered, Walm finds himself laughing. He then states that he is also sorry, but that service will finally end today. This time, it is Walm against various soldiers. To avoid Walm's Ignis Fatuus, there were no allies near him. After using Ignis Fatuus to his limits, Walm hardly had any magic left, so he ended up using his power mode instead. Walm musters all of his strength and tries to fight every soldier one after another. He even tried using some of his Ignis Fatuus power left, and when he is eventually caught up in the fight, the various soldiers then think that Walm might have died already from their attacks when they see no sign of him at all. However, little did they know that he was just hiding behind the smoke to analyze the situation. Walm noticed that the nose scar guy was able to defend against his power move, so he is good at strengthening his body with magic. On the other hand, the receding hairline guy is a fire element user who specializes in fire resistance. And the last one is this water element user. He protects others from the fire and brings them to Walm. So this is how they are divided, said Walm. So if that is the case, he first attacks the fire user so that the others would panic. Walm is sure of the fact that all of these soldiers are skilled. He can't make a single move. It is as if he is dancing in a minefield. One after another, the enemy just keeps on charging at him without giving him some time to attack back. The only thing that keeps him on track is his Ignis Fatuus. Walm knows that if he keeps fighting like this, his magic will run out, and he'll get tortured to death. As much as he can, he tries to maximize his Ignis Fatuus power to burn off the enemy. However, it seems like the fire resistance power that the enemy has is as strong as Walm's. It came to a point where Walm didn't know what to do next since the enemies were both coming to attack him at once. He starts to panic a little, but eventually, he decides to do the best he can. He focuses on attacking one soldier at a time, and eventually, he is able to take the lead. It seems like the various soldiers care so much about their comrades that they will do anything to make sure that they can save others even if they need to sacrifice themselves. And that is what makes them bad soldiers, as per Walm. Their attachment to others will literally cause their downfall. With that said, after Walm killed 2 of the 3 enemies, he is now left with only one to take care of. However, before he can even go near the last man, the supposedly dead comrades try to stop Walm from moving any further. Disgusted by the blood the man has, Walm punches the guy till his last breath. He then moves on to kill the last guy, who seems to be a bit resistant. Walm then uses his arms to choke the man till he dies eventually. Now that they are dead, Walm can finally breathe a little. However, he is so shocked when a burnt man carries a sword and tries to fight him once more. It looks like the fire-resistant guy, and it seems like he didn't die from the deadly attacks that Walm did earlier. Before the burnt man can even land a hit on Walm, one of the Hyzerk soldiers then enters the scene, killing the man in one go. Walm, who is very much exhausted, thanks his comrades for helping him. Walm then tells him that maybe next time, they should come earlier so that he wouldn't be this exhausted. I mean, he was literally almost turned into minced meat a while ago. His comrades then reason out that he hasn't stopped being a human to be able to throw himself into such a raging fire. So instead of bickering, his comrades then tell him to get up so that he can be treated. Walm then sat beside the wall while his comrades called for help. However, it seems like Walm is a bit uncomfortable that a dead burnt man is literally beside him right now, but he has no choice but to wait for help. While waiting, Walm can hear the sound of people breaking through the castle gate. He then starts to question himself if this is something that they really enjoy doing, since it's really that messed up. In the northern archipelago, somewhere in the Kingdom of Christ, the Commercial Federation of Libertoa and the Kingdom of Farius holds a countermeasure meeting on how to deal with the Hyzerk Empire. Now then, the host of the meeting is none other than Chester Christ, the king of the Christ Kingdom, the kingdom that is getting invaded by the Hyzerk army. Barristan Farius, the king of the Farius Kingdom. King Barristan used to be meeker compared to his younger brother, but his eyes, even compared to before, are no longer showing any signs of distress or worry. Moreover, other than these kings, there is also one person that some of you might be familiar with, and she is none other than Rita, who turns out to be of the Isekai'd family. 3 weeks after the fort fell, at the Refn mine base, Walm is talking with some guy who seems to have great news to deliver. As the man leaves, he says how glad he is that the stationary life is finally over. It turns out that while their numerous strongholds were getting attacked, various soldiers holed up in the mines and were slowly destroying themselves. If anyone had looked at their food provisions and army size, anyone would think that they could have withstood this. But in the face of endless castle siege and mental harassment, it didn't take them long to surrender everything. From Refn Mine Castle to every fort, surrender immediately or we'll kill you all, soldiers and citizens alike. That warning from the Hyzerk messenger was the last straw for them. That said, now that the whole situation has subsided a little, Walm has now decided to go back to work and roam around the newly invaded place. As he steps right into the central plaza, Jose immediately welcomes him, stating that after a few days of resting, he has now finally come back to the original unit, and thankfully he is more healthy looking now than he was before. Walm then states that the restoration magic that was used on him was something else. It seems like it treated his injuries that would take months to heal in 2 weeks. The first time he saw it, it was so amazing. Walm even remembers the way it magically healed the surface and the bones first, and the rest healed itself. While they are in their conversation, Northern comes into the scene, welcoming Walm for his arrival. It seems like everyone is quite delighted that Walm is alright now. Walm then says hi to her, then asks why she looks kind of rugged now compared to before. Northern reasons that it has been challenging since then, considering Due's squad was also deployed to take down the castle. Other than that, it seems like something bad has happened to Boruto. But not that kind of bad as some of you might think. He technically got his cool hairstyle trimmed unexpectedly during a fight. That's why he weeps like a baby right now, not being able to accept what has happened. Although Boruto seems a bit overreacting, at least he is lucky that the rest of his body is fine. Even though his hair is really quite a mess, Nor just keeps on telling him that it suits him well so that he wouldn't panic all over again. Walm also tried to calm him down, saying that at least his hairstyle served a purpose. Now that Walm has finally confirmed that everyone is okay, he starts looking for Commander Due. Nor then tells him that the platoon commander has called for him, and it looks like the mines haven't been fully cleared out yet, so they are first taking care of it. Following the leading troops, they are also going to invade the interior of Farius, so it's just a matter of time before we know what will happen next. On the other hand, going back to the meeting, the host is pleased to present the Principality of Isekai'd, Princess Rita. However, it seems like Hugo Evans, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Libertoa, thinks that Rita shouldn't be joining the meeting considering the Isekai'd kingdom is already done for, so it is weird to see that there is some sort of representative still. Rita then states that it's undoubtedly true that Isekai'd has lost most of its territory, but they still have the land of Serta left. Because a giant makes rounds of it, it has ample fishing resources and waterways. It's an economic powerhouse, but it is now a base for the lake dragon. Although the dragon may be a subspecies of dragon, It's a powerful monster that belongs to the highest of ranks. If such a thing is staying over there, even High Zerg won't bother with it. Rita then states that everything Hugo said was true. However, as of now, the lake dragon has been subjugated. Hearing this made Hugo shocked, as he never thought that he would hear such news like this at all. He then asks once more if what he heard was correct, since not more than 6 months ago, it wasn't possible to capture that thing. One of the kings then states that it was that person who did it. A fire element user who can even scorch a dragon, and he is one of the 3 Christ's heroes. Even the king could say that it is so amazing no matter how many times he has seen it already. And this hero's name is Akima Yuto. He is one of those visitors from another world. He is blessed with immense power and comrades, an assassin from Earth it appears. Going back to the High Zerg army, it seems like the soldiers in the squad are glad that they have joined the High Zerg army. Thanks to them, they can now loot and have any girl they want. All the decent Farius soldiers were killed and mired. All that's left in this area are small fries. That said, it is now time to move on to the next village since they have already stolen as many goods as they can. However, before they could even leave, there was a sudden attack that shocked them so much. As they checked the surroundings, they were pretty confused since these people are different from the soldiers they know. As the men get surrounded by this armored army, they eventually realize that these are not Farius soldiers, but instead, Christ ones. Even though they try to fight every soldier they come across, it seems like it is no good since there's too much of a difference. Even if they fight, they're gonna get killed in the end. They now start to panic on what they are going to do next since they have to abandon the village. However, they have no choice but to leave everything and run for their lives. Although they have collected so much, they have no choice but to run since it is still better than dying. The men then take advantage of the dusk and get out of the raid as fast as they can. They even start to wonder, as they run for their lives, why would Christ soldiers do a raid in the area? Then they are halted for a while when a man walks in front of them, saying that they should all just surrender since resistance is futile. The men try to shout at the kid, saying that they should get out of their way or else he will die. However, one of the members then realizes that the kid is actually just a magic hallucination. That said, after the said raid, 3 Saria battalions of the High Zerg army were destroyed. There were around 700 unreturned soldiers. On the other hand, it seems like Jose was quite shocked when he heard that they would be retreating support. He honestly thinks that it is some kind of joke. On the other hand, inside Walm's mind, what has happened to their plan of invading the interiors of Farius? Commander Dewey then states that even he couldn't believe his ears either, so he asked the War Council. And then they told him something shocking. Farius Kingdom, Christ Kingdom, the Commercial Federation of Liberatoa, and the remnants of Myard have now joined forces to defeat the High Zerg Kingdom. This shocks everyone, since that means every country in the Northern Archipelago has now become their enemy. Walm then thought that if he was not wrong, every country in the Northern Archipelago was eyeing each other. To think they would suddenly join forces is unexpected. Barido then asks what the enemy's numbers are. Commander Dewey then states that no one should worry about the numbers and just focus on what is ordered for them to do. But in total, the enemy's army exceeds 60,000. On the other hand, the High Zerg army deployed to Farius is 16,000 soldiers. Even if they could combine the 2 battalions stationed at Edinburgh, it would be at least 24,000 soldiers, which is obviously lacking. Meanwhile, at the meeting of the different nations, they are now talking about Farius' kingdom wanting to propose a 4-nation alliance. An alliance that emphasizes both the military and economic aspects of the 4 nations, with Lake Serta as the economic zone. Hugo thinks that it is such a bold move. However, it sounds like fun to him. After all, the glory and fall of each nation are at stake at this very important meeting. Now back at the High Zerg army, everyone has now informed their men that the High Zerg forces are on the defensive and will be withdrawing in stages. It seems like they will take place at the Sarajevo fortresses. With their current amount of men and the supplies that they looted, they might not win, but they might not lose too. It seems like the High Zerg army will retreat to the Sarajevo fortress from this mine, protecting their allies. There, they will engage the 4-nation alliance in a defensive battle. In short, the army seems to be giving up already since it can't be helped, considering how outnumbered they are. Commander Dewey then states to everyone that at least they are not going to give it back for free, since they are going to cave in the mine, and all the prisoners of war will also be killed. That said, for now, they just need to help their allied forces as much as possible. And when the fight broke out, it seemed like everyone was so focused on killing one enemy after another. However, with Walm's Ignis Fatuus, everyone seems to be in the right direction. On the other hand, Walm has now been used to his new role in battle, and it would be just a matter of time before we know how many more people he can kill in the future. That's all we have for today. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified if we upload part 2 of the series. Until next time, bye!